so deep, it got me in my feelings, yeah. Said the same motherfucker hating on me last week. I've been running around and sitting, no patience. We are so close, like a motherfucking taste it. Came a long way from the motherfucking basement. Working overtime, so no wonder why I wonder where the day went.
What is going on, guys? This is Platinum Point, and I'm here to bring you guys yet again another Weiss Schwarz deck profile. This time it's going to be on Kaguya-sama Love is War post Banlist. Since I posted a Data Live deck profile which was catered to the post Banlist, I decided to showcase Kaguya-sama since it was the second deck that got hit on the Banlist. And the reason why I'm showing these two decks before we even go into kind of the more current meta, meta decks, which are not Data Live, Rishoku Tensei, Hololive, etc. And my reasoning for that is because I want to showcase what I've been working with in terms of kind of retooling the older decks before we try to get into something new, because I've already been testing with Mushoku and Hololive already. And if you already saw the previous video of me play testing Hololive, I'll put a link in the description below, or in the end cards. Check that match out because it was actually really fun showcasing that particular version of Hololive in action. So I'm also testing out Mushoku, but I also tested out some of the older decks to see how they can function in a post Banlist meta. And with Kaguya in this video, I had to make a lot of concessions since we lost. We had to pick between the clean cut K, which is a mill runner, and clean cut. If you remember, if you don't know what that card is, check out the previous deck profile of this, which is on my channel. And the Chika Ricky, which also was another like power card slash consistency tool. We had to choose between those two and the drop search, which is like the key piece in majority of the Kaguya decks, because if you're running the 3-2 Kaguya, you needed the the Hayasaka drop search, and the Chika was one of the ways you could get it out. But because of the Banlist where we were forced to pick one of those three, we had to sack out the utility of the clean cut slash mill runner and the Chika Ricky in order to get just overall be able to secure one of the best finishers in the deck, which is the Kaguya. So overall, I had to retool the strategy and look at what other avenues I had to go into. So this deck runs a lot more blue than before because of the fact that there's a lot of good utility in blue, particularly in deck speed and as well as consistency tools. So I decided, instead of trying to make the traditional gameplay work out, which you can do, I wanted to go for a more utility based Kaguya list. And overall, with the testing that I've been putting this deck through, it's actually been really nice, and I actually prefer the utility version rather than just establishing the traditional big numbers to crack boards. So before we get onto the deck profile, I just wanted to remind you guys, please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. I will be posting a bunch of deck profiles of the major decks that you will likely encounter in the English season, especially since we have now finished the Springfest section of the 2022 Weiss Schwarz season, and we're moving on to now the next BCS, which is the Bushiroad, basically our BSFs, as well our regional series for singles, as well as our Bushiroad Online Rumble number 2. And if you guys remember, I did mention, I think in the previous video, I did bubble in the last bro. I went 9th place in the EU with Data Live, so hopefully I can redeem myself and get lucky to get into the top 8 for the next BRO. I am going to be testing nonstop to just get the kinks out and figure out which deck I am going to be taking. I'm kind of narrowing it down to 3 decks right now. So I won't go into detail what are those 3 decks because I want to keep it a secret. But overall, I'm really excited for that. I am going to be doing a video on discussing about the recent Japanese ban list and the announcement of BCS the in-person regional series, as well as the Bushiroad Online Rubble, so we can talk about potential news and potential shake-up to the meta that Bushiroad could do to spice things up. So without further ado, actually, let's get onto the deck profile. So we are still doing the standby door pairing because this is the most stable lineup for Kaguya. Once set 2 comes along, or more information about set 2 comes, I will show you guys a Japanese version of it that you could run when this set comes out in English, and I do hope they do release set 2 in English here as well, along with Data Live set 2. So let's get these out of the way, starting off with these zeros. So since we lost the mill runner, we're kind of we have to now pivot into the Trembling Kaguya, which is a free running bomb, level 0 bomb, which is a really good opening going first now, because it not only allows you to threaten boards on your opponent's crackback, but it's a good just red card to level up at level 1. So now that we've kind of lost the K runner, we actually did free up some space for color balancing, which was Kaguya's main issue in the pre-ban list. Was like there was so much utility in the deck that the color configurations was a little bit all over the place, since you're running in the deck you're theoretically running 4 different colors, which made some consistency issues if you weren't like carefully mapping out your game plan. But thanks to the ban list, one kind of silver lining was that it allowed us to have room for streamlining the colors, which is just hella good. So we're playing 4 copies of the bomb runner. Not 3 but 4, I mean. And then next we play 4 copies of the Eye Bestowing Courage. So this is the card that we pick off the ban list since we want to run the Kaguya finisher, and this is the main key piece for the deck. So this card is just essentially your drop searcher. Pay 1, discard 1, search your deck for a Shuchin character and add it to your hand. And it also has the other ability: when you play a climax, bounce this, give a character that you have plus 2k. So it helps you crack boards on your swing. And since you can't rely on the Ricky to search this out from the deck, you have to play 4 so you can increase the chances of drawing into it. Next we play 3 copies of the Miraculous Compatibility Kaguya. So normally we would play, if in Kaguya, this brainstorm. Let me pull it up. I actually have it on a separate file. We would play the full sprint Kaguya at 3, but because we're kind of retooling the deck to be more utility based and more consistent. You don't need to rely so heavy on just pushing your deck out, like forcing your deck into mill states, because the problem with this Kaguya brainstorm is that even though it's a spammable brainstorm, you do not get the full benefit off of it unless you hit a climax. And there are some situations where by just having this out here, you're just burning resources just to mill, when blue has access to other ways of milling without having to spam this. So overall, I had to make the concession of dropping this and go for a more kind of just a traditional game plan for the level 0, which is just a utility plusing 0, which overall I do prefer, because you don't want to go too fast. You don't want to turbo your deck out too fast. And this Kaguya, which is a pay 1 tap self, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each climax revealed, search your deck for a character, Shuchin character. So this one is just your traditional plussing brainstorm without you having to move cards from your hand. And even though the spammable brainstormer does that for you, like helps you move cards from your hand out if you those dead cards, we're playing since we're kind of retooling the deck to be more like a traditional fair deck. We're not so heavily reliant on the standby strategy. We're just using the standby as a bonus now. So I am playing the miraculous compatibility Kaguya just for that main reason. And plus, it does have the benefit of on play giving a character -500, which is really nice. Next, we play 2 copies of Escaping from Reality U. So this is the only yellow card we're running in the deck. And the reason why we're running it is just for the ability on attack, give a character plus 2k. Since this allows you to pump certain lanes, pump the lanes that you need to crack open with relative ease. And in the early stages, you can use the second ability, which is to pay 1 to run it to the back row, to the open slot in your back row. So this allows you to reuse it again. And the reason why I cut it down to 2 is because decks like Ruby that have I forget the not Neapolitan, oh my god, I forget that 0/0, forget, Neon Cat, which basically bottom decks any level, like any character on the front stage has cost 0 that's 1, or if it's the only character in the front row. So if you somehow had to crash, like when you play these two out, and you had to essentially break the lane by sacking this by reversing it, and you have this only on the field, you're liable if you're face off against, let's say, Mushoku Tensei or even Ruby, to get forced to bottom deck this card, which just makes this all the more less valuable. And since those kind of effects, like the Neon Cat, which bottom decks the soul, cost 0 on board, and Rudius, which sends it to the waiting room, I didn't want to leave myself kind of open to those effects, and this card just becomes less and less valuable when you face off against those types of decks. So like, I'd rather just, even if I have to swing with the runner and lose the runner, that's fine. But like giving those matchups more kind of level 0s that they can just easily bottom deck is just all the more just unnecessary. And I feel like this could be easily slotted for more utility cards. So that's why you play it at 2, just for the 2k pump, but nothing more. I did try 3 and it's fine, but I think 2 is more than enough in testing. Next, we play 2 copies of the Dignified Appearance Kaguya, which is when it comes into play, you get to check the top 2 cards of your deck and rearrange them in any order. Then you get to pay 1, discard a climax, choose a climax from your waiting room, and salvage it. So this is your traditional climax swap. And we're playing 2 of this because since we're more reliant on our climax combos to pop off, we need some kind of way to get it to our hand if we happen to draw the wrong one. And the climax swap is just overall just a good utility card. And then lastly, for level 0s, we play 1 copy of the Skill Miss Innocent Kaguya, which is a on play, you can either pay 3 stock swap, or it also has the battle ability on attack, pay 1, and you can twin drive check. So this card is just there just for the stock swap and just the free twin drive that you need once in a while. Going on to the 1 step, we play 4 copies of In the Corridor at Dusk Kaguya. So this is basically your level 1 Shimakaze that pairs with the standby. So when this climax is in play, when she attacks, you reveal the top part of your deck, and you can put this underneath it as a marker. And if this card reverses an opponent's character by battle, you can detach the marker. And by the way, that second effect, the search effect, detach a marker to search, is actually independent from the climax combo. So the climax combo is just there to build the markers. So when you have both in play, this is why the Shimakaze is such a good one, is you're essentially milling your deck out for 3 cards. One for the attack, one for the climax combo, the second for the attack trigger, and then the third one if you get the reverse from the search. So you're essentially thinning your deck out by 3 cards off of 1 attack. So this card is actually really nice for that, as it's a stable deck thinning tool. And there are some situations that I've encountered where if I'm close to refreshing, like if I'm like 1, 2, 3 cards away, I would just simply marker, not take the search, and just let my opponent just kill this character, and I'm able to refresh in a more compressed state when they crack back, because I was able to thin my deck out of 2 cards and able to keep out 2 cards from the refresh. So that's one good thing. That's one kind of nice cheeky play that you can do if you're going into if you're about to go into refresh. Like if after the marker and the attack, you have only about, and this is the last attack, you have about 1 or 2 cards left in deck, you can forego the search and just hold on to that marker. And when your opponent attacks and triggers, not only are you taking out the 2 cards from you're taking out 2 cards from your second deck from the trigger, but you also take out an additional card from the marker. So this essentially is a free compression tool when you think about it that way. So that's why I like to use it for that cheeky play as well. But most of the time you're going to get rid of the marker. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just something you can do if you want to do kind of cheeky plays. Continuing on with the one step, we play 2 copies of Abada Friend Kaguya. So this card is a tech piece that I am playing from set 1, which is basically has the profile of On Death Rize. So when it gets sent to the waiting room from field, you get to check the top 3 cards of your deck, up to the top 3 by the way. Choose a Shuchin character from among them, add it to your hand, send the rest to waiting room, then discard a card. So this is your secondary mill that this deck has access to. And in most lists they didn't run this, because since the Chico Ricky made you kind of slant more into yellow, you wanted to keep the number of blue cards very small. But now that we lost the Ricky, we're at a point where you can kind of pivot to different color variants, and I chose the blue line because since blue has a lot of the plus and utility cards right now, since we technically can't run the Chica, the 0-0 Chica Ricky, because if we're gonna play the Kaguya finisher, we have to play this search, this drop searcher. I wanted to shift my focus from red, yellow, green to blue, since blue had a lot of utility cards from after researching this, and this was on my radar since day 1 when it came out in GP in the Japanese meta. So now that the Banlist kind of took into effect in English, I decided I wanted to try this route in English. And in testing, it actually worked really well, because not only was this an On Death Rize, but it has a second ability, which is a resonance ability, by the way, which is when you reveal the Hayasaka from your hand, this gains plus 2k. So if you have the 1/1 Kaguya backliner, which is your other selective milling next to the brainstorm, these are basically your main mill components. You essentially reach a 7k if this is in the backline, and which is a pretty decent number to answer most level 1 boards. So being able to just have this be your free mill as well as a free attacking body is just all the more nice. And not to mention, unlike the spammable brainstorm where you have to constantly pay one to do the hand fixing, you can just simply play over this card and do the same thing, except you're milling 3 cards. Instead of milling 4, you're milling 3 cards, but you can potentially get a utility piece from those 3 that you desperately needed that turn. So this card ultimately just is more efficient than the spammable brainstorm in terms of just milling quality, and the fact that it's just overall just a really good effect. Heck, SAO runs this, and if it works for SAO, why not try it in Kaguya when you have almost the exact same kind of profile? Speaking of the 1/1 Kaguya, so we play 2 copies of this, as this is our quote-unquote main standby target at level 0. And the reason why we're only playing this at 2 is we have the brainstorm already. So like I feel like this is just there if you can get it. If you hard play it along with this Kaguya, you have essentially the most solid backline that you need. So when you just basically are now, instead of just slamming the standby, you're just hoping to trigger it to just clean out your front lane that you've surrendered in order to replace it with other characters. And this is basically, if you don't know what this is a level booster. So 500 times the level of the character in front of it, and the resonance ability, pay 1, tap this, reveal the Hayasaka, check up to the top 3 cards of your deck, and add a Shuchin character from among them. So we play 2 copies of that. And then lastly, for the level 1s, we play 2 copies of the Miyuki smartphone debut. So this is just basically your anti level 2 standby targets. So this is just here to handle those lanes, since decks like Mushoku and even Quince are going to be very popular going into the next season, which is the next fall season of competitive play. So you need this at 2 as an easy out to that matchup. So now moving on to the level 2s. So we play 2 copies of Bewitching Pose Kaguya, which is just your free fresh backup. Next, we play 3 copies of the Smithy A Hayasaka. So we're playing this over the 2/2U because we're trying to. When I was building this deck, I wanted to smooth out my colors, and since I decided to sack out yellow in this deck lineup, I decided the best kind of standby target for this deck is gonna have to be the Hayasaka. I am planning on pivoting for a different line of play, but I'm still kind of just examining the set a little bit more. There is a level 2 that I'm kind of considering. I don't know specifically, but when I was reading through the set again, there is a couple level 2 cards that have caught my eye, and if I do present another version of this deck, you'll probably see them in play. But right now I'm just testing this level 2 lineup, which is right now just fine. It's the same kind of number, lineup that you see in my data live list. And then now onto the level 3s. We play 1 copy of the Vice Principal Kaguya. So this is the Trodeck finisher, which has the continuous ability. If this is in center stage, it's a global 1500 for all characters on the center stage, including herself. So if you have the level booster, she's an easy 13k, and she just helps pump the other lanes to help you get your reverses when you get to your kill turn. Not only that, she does have the second effect, which is your secondary finisher ability, which is a pay 1, discard 1. You send the bottom 3 cards of your opponent's deck to the waiting room, and for every climax revealed from among the 3, you burn X. So X equals to the number of climaxes revealed from the mill 3. So this is just your secondary finisher, and overall just your power pumper for the level 3s. Next, we play 3 copies of a certain summer day K, which is your early play stock healer. So the only important green cards in the set are essentially this K and this, and the 3 copies of the Persistent Conviction Miyuki. So these are the only important greens that you should run in the deck. Although there are other utility cards that green has, but when I was testing it with this kind of standby configuration, it didn't really jive well for me because it relied on so many pieces to be on the board to do it that I found it that green was only useful for these 2 cards. And essentially your only clock to the green is to get to green is either clocking the early play stock healer K or this Miyuki, which is your tertiary finisher. So the reason why we're playing 3 Miyuki is because of its really busted ability. So when it comes into play, it gains 4,500 and the ability during this card's battle until the end of your opponent's turn. Keyword end of your opponent's next turn. It gains plus 4,500 and the ability when this card is in battle, neither player can play backups. So this card allows you to immediately just ignore the rest counter, the rest counter in Mushoku Tensei and in Hololive, but it also has the added bonus when your experience is 4 or more, aka the total level of the cards in your level is 4 or greater. You get the ability on reverse, pay 2, discard 1, clock kick. So this is an early play clock kick, and this is an early play stock heal. So you can either early play either one depending on your board state. If you are ahead, you can play this Miyuki to crack boards. If you're behind and you need to heal down, the K is more preferential. So you have 2 options for your early plays. And then lastly, for the level 3s, we are playing 4 copies of the Serious Showdown Between Geniuses Kaguya. So this pairs with the door, and she has the on-play ability, on-play heal. And when this climax is in play, when this card declares an attack, you can pay 1, deal 1 damage to your opponent, and until the end of your opponent's next turn, it gains plus 2k. So this is on its own an 11-5 with climax 12-5. If you pump it with both either the U or the Hayasaka, it's 13-5. This can be with this Kage on board 15-5, and it can reach ridiculous numbers on the front swing, and on the crack back it can easily be at least a 1400 beat stick. So this is just this profile is basically essentially Mikasa because it's an on attack pay 1 burn 1, but it also has an additional ability. So the additional ability is when it reverses an opponent's character, you may discard a card, reveal this Hayasaka, burn in an additional 1. So this is the exact same profile as the burn profile as the AOT Mikasa finisher, except it's an on-play heal and it's on a plussing trigger. So that's why when they hit this on the ban list, you kind of had to just lock in on these because this is just the best finisher in the set, and you can only get the full effect if you have the Hayasaka. So that's why we play it as such. And overall, I do like this deck. It's one of my favorite sets, and I am just so happy that even though it got hit in the ban list, it's still a really good contender, as shown by the data for the Spring Fest. And if you've been paying attention, this is one of the few decks that actually have been one of the many decks that have been consistently topping. So I hope you guys like this deck profile. I hope you guys like my spin on it, because I decided to take a different route compared to what other people have done, like Carmen from the Burn One group, and I decided to try a different route, and this kind of configuration has worked for me. So I hope you guys like this deck profile. The next deck profile that you're gonna be seeing is gonna be either Mushoku Tensei, Hololive, or the updated Saikano list. I'm still tweaking out Saikano, so the next list you're gonna probably see is Mushoku or Hololive. Other than that, the next video that you're gonna see from me is a discussion video about the recent news about the Bushiroad Circuit series, as well as the Bushiroad Rumble Online, as well as some discussions on the Japanese ban list and its implications in our meta today. Once again, this is Platinum Point. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, false crack that like button, and stay on point, guys.